I'll hand over to Daniel.
Thanks. Caroline, could you just, for Gaze's benefit, just say who carbon cutters are? She doesn't know what she's let herself in for. There's a brief
Oh, all right. Well,
description.
we're the local eco group that we were formed in 2008 in Abingdon, and we do lots of different activities such as growing food locally in demonstration beds in Abbey Meadows. So I don't know whether you've walked past the demonstration bed behind the kiosk where we grow
Yeah.
vegetables there. And then there's some grown at Old Station House and some grown in the area where the old council buildings are. There's a big bed there. And we tend some of the bee friendly beds. So in the play area on Abbey Meadows, there's lots of tulips and other bee friendly plants there. So carbon cutters look after those. And there's notices up there to say that they're carbon cutter managed beds. So we do that. We've also planted trees on Rye Farm Meadow. So we've planted 3 batches of trees opposite the open air swimming pool, which you'll be able to see if you go walking along the towpath on the far side, or the new trees with the tree guards. We've got an Aberdeen Livable Streets group that campaigns to make it safer for cyclists and walkers to get around Abingdon, and they've been instrumental in getting the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and doing lots of other really good things, like cordoning off the road outside St Nick's School during the time the kids go and come away, so that there's no cars there to run them over. We've got a plastics group that has been instrumental in making Abingdon a plastic-free town. Although we're not totally plastic-free, we've gone a long way to cut in plastic. What else have we got? An energy group that Daniel runs with Anne. Looking at
main income is apple pressing.
Yeah, and we do a lot of apple pressing.
Oh,
That
that's
gives you a flavour. Very busy.
Can I just say, obviously, I'm interested on the agenda that you've got about local activities. The bank pays for us to become part of these activities as well. So if I've got a calendar of the events, I know that you mentioned about the riverbank cleaning and what have you. I can get the team engaged in one of these days and get them out. I think we all live in the community, so it's nice to give something back.
Yeah, okay, so you'd like to know what events are on?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Okay, lovely. All right, we'll sort that out.
You're handing the baton over.
Yes, I'm handing the baton over to you, Daniel.
Okay, so 2021, the town council asked carbon cutters if they would like to run the cafe underneath the county hall. Okay. And the answer was conditionally no, but the condition was if more people could join in. So Added Ingredients, Jill Carver from Added Ingredients, who you may know, joined in. Stonehill Community Gardens joined in. Abingdon XR, Extinction Rebellion, and Oxford Wood Recycling. And between us, that's including Abingdon Carbon Cutters, obviously, we now manage to run the cafe Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 10 till 4. We've got a license for the next 5 years, and they would like us to run the cafe 10 till 4, 6 days a week, not primarily, but partly so that we can keep the toilets open for them. Because it's very embarrassing to have the county hall museum or the town museum not having toilets available unless the climate emergency centre is open. So that's, I've been having carbon cutter for many years, but I'm also the director of the climate emergency centre. And the town council asked us, that's the combined the One Planet Abingdon Climate Emergency Centre with Abingdon Carbon Cutters, to run the Green Forum. And the current Green Forum is energy. We did one last year on specifically home energy. This one is more about business energy, but you tell us what you know, and we'll ask you questions, and you might pass us on to other places where we might find answers. So I walked into NatWest Bank looking for somebody to help us run a webinar before Christmas on home energy, and Gejsa came out to speak to me. I didn't expect the manager to do that. And since then, I've been in touch with her a few times, and her default answer is yes. So despite being on holiday till yesterday, or Monday, today's Wednesday, she said yes. So welcome, Gejsa.
Thank you.
And look forward to hearing what you've got to say about banking.
I hope I can answer all your questions. That's all I can say. I'll try my best. So my name's Gejsa. I run the NatWest Bank in Abingdon. I've been working with NatWest for the last 14 years. I joined when the well-known Fred the Shred left the company. I don't know whether you've heard about him, but he's well known in the media, I've been told. And throughout the last 14 years I've been in service, I've seen so many changes. And I have to say for the better. I suppose becoming more sustainable, becoming more customer obsessed, and trying to become more ethical as we go along. Obviously, ethical is a strong word, and we're not where we want to be as a bank. But I suppose the leadership team is working hard in terms of getting us to become more and more ethical. And as I was saying to Sally earlier on, it's like having a barometer and looking at the barometer, and then we're doing small steps in the right directions. We're not where we need to be. Obviously, we're still one of the big 5 financing institutions that is heavily involved with fossil fuels. But a good step in the right direction is the fact that we've stopped financing new projects. So we're trying to make do with removing the old ones as well. We were one of the main financing institutions for the COP26 that happened last year in Glasgow. And since then, in line with the Paris Agreement, we've made a pledge to reduce our carbon footprint as much as we can as part of the operations that we do. So one of the things that we've done, which has cut considerably, is the fact that we've moved all of our the way our customers apply for our products is not done on paper anymore. It's all electronic. So we've removed the use of paper substantially. And when I say substantially, as I was saying earlier, I used to use about a pack of A4 every week. And I can't remember last time I put an order for A4 paper to come through anymore, because we don't need to. Now, when Daniel came in the office, he was very keen to know about the way we finance greenhouses and how we help customers that have more energy efficient homes get on the property ladder or move to a greener house. So I'm open to questions, how we do it and how we assess it, and what kind of what we look out for and how we can help customers get to that stage. I think you're muted, Daniel.
It's all counterintuitive, isn't it? Because if I have an energy efficient house, I have more money, not less, and you're rewarding me for good behavior. But the higher risk people are those who have inefficient houses, and they're the ones you should be watching with care. Isn't that right? It seems to be the reverse of good financial management, to reward people who have more money.
Not necessarily, I would have thought, because whilst the new houses seem to be a bit more expensive than older houses, you kind of pay the difference in price in the way you run your property. I live in a brand new property, which is B rated efficiency wise. And I have to say, in comparison to my friend who lives in the same size house, but is D-rated, I save quite a bit of money on the electricity and energy bills. So from that perspective, whilst it may look more expensive, over the long run, it's cheaper because there's lesser costs involved. And sorry, the dog's going because the door's going. But yeah, don't think it's necessarily as expensive. Plus, there is so many perks with the new homes nowadays. You can have them smarter. The way they build them, they're far more sustainable than old homes. I don't know. Personally, I found as a customer, I found that living in a new home, as opposed to my old house, which was an old home, is much better. But I wouldn't know how to answer your question, because obviously I suppose they charge different on the areas we live in as well. So the same house in Oxfordshire wouldn't cost the same in northern part of the country, but it would still be efficient.
And the policy is nationwide, is it? The green mortgage is your national policy. It's not one at your discretion. It's something the company.
No. It's a policy. It doesn't matter whereabouts in the country you live in. As long as you've got an A or B rated property, you can get cheaper mortgage rates. So my style home, for instance, you can buy up north and it would be a fraction of the price than what I've paid for down here. Yeah. You would still get at green mortgage rates. We don't penalize customers for where they live, is if they've got an A or B rated. Plus, there is a lot of customers that do improvements to their property. So if they can get their rating up to an A or a B, we can still give them a green mortgage. It's not just new builds.
So a remortgage or?
Yeah. So if you purchase a property and you bring it up to spec A or B, then you can get a green mortgage. If you remortgage from, let's say, I don't know, you've got a mortgage with Nationwide and you want to remortgage to NatWest and your property is B rated, you would qualify for green mortgage rates.
And would you lend me £10,000, £20,000 to put an air source heat pump in my house?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Did you say?
Would you lend me £20,000 to put an air source heat pump in my house?
Yes, we do lend up to £50,000 towards home improvement loans. And customers can stretch those over 10 years, or you can add them to your mortgage. So if somebody's got a mortgage and they want to do home renovations to make it more efficient, greener, more sustainable, then we can release funds from the mortgage to be able to do so. Obviously, we may not be able to give them the green rate until they've been certified that they A or B rated, but yeah, we do fund home improvements, especially to do with greener, becoming greener, more sustainable.
Gejsa said she didn't want to produce documents on screen because they are online. So if you explore the NatWest Bank website, you will find their sustainability policies.
The sustainability policies are there. The information around our green mortgages is all accessible on our website. And equally, what we're trying to do as a group in order to, I suppose, become more ethical, become more sustainable, is all accessible on our website as well. And I suppose it's been part of our report, which was produced not long ago, because in February we produced our annual reports. So the becoming greener, becoming more ethical and more efficient is part of those reports as well.
Anybody else want to join the conversation? Come on, Caroline.
Right, so you said that NatWest isn't investing in any new fossil fuel projects. Is NatWest investing in any green energy projects like wind farms?
I'm not aware of the green projects. However, I know that we're investing 100 billion in renewable energy. And I don't know whether the wind farms are part of that. I'm not too sure, and I don't want to mislead into giving the wrong information. I can find out and share information with Daniel if you want me to. That's something that I can do surely to be able to answer your questions. But I know that we're investing heavily in renewable energy.
Oh, good.
And actually, through our app, customers have got access to carbon footprint. So depending on what they've spent, they can see what carbon footprint they've had for that month. So that includes money that you spend on fuel to fuel up the car, money you spent, and actually it converts it into units. So for instance, it says the carbon footprint you've used this month could have charged so many phones, basically. It's quite fascinating, actually. They call it Geeky Zero.
Oh.
And that's on your website, is it? Was
That's
that
on
custom-
our, no, that's part of our application, mobile phone application.
Is it for customers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not
So
for non-customers.
they can see what carbon footprint they've caused with the way they've spent their money. It's quite fascinating.
Do you do that?
Well, it's not a true reflection on me because, as cheeky as it sounds, we use my husband's credit card, so mine is quite green if you look at it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, shall I just pipe up? It's Simon Hills here from.
Hi, Simon.
I work for UK Finance, which is your trade association, and thinking about. I'm a bit involved in green finance. So certainly, NatWest I know led the financing of the Dogger Bank wind farm. So NatWest was the lead arranger on a 5.5 billion loan to finance that £6 billion project. And there are banks around the world that are very keen to get involved in green finance. I think perhaps contrary to what some people might feel about banks, we do feel we've got a strong purpose here in moving towards helping society to move towards net zero, and green finance is an area where all of UK Finance's member banks are spending a lot of time and effort. But of course, one of the issues we need to understand is that different countries have different views of what is green finance, and we'll all be aware of the problems around greenwashing. So regulators and supervisors and accounting bodies around the world are working very hard to come up with a sort of harmonized approach to defining a green project. And I think that's a very important initiative. And I've just put in the chat there a report we released in November, which scales some of the challenges. Gejsa, you're very lucky to be living in a house rated B. I think something like 42% of the current housing stock is rated D or below. And it's a huge challenge to get that housing stock up so we can meet our government's net zero target by 2050. And of course, banks alone can't do that. And you're quite right that many banks, including NatWest, do offer finance at more attractive rates to help customers green their homes. But if you're if you're living in the north of England, you were talking about, and perhaps your property is worth £120,000, and you're sort of middle or low income fellow citizen, investing 20,000 in a wind pump, in a ground source heat pump or an air source heat pump, is just not really on, and that's got to come through grants, and that's one of the our report's main thrusts, is we have to work together in a collaborative way on this.
Well, I suppose you're right, and obviously, whilst we all want to become green, I mean, I live in a B-rated home. We have an electric car. We have a diesel car as well. But buying an electric car is not a cheap thing. They don't come cheap. They're very expensive. And it was funny because my husband travels to London for work, and he tried to register the car for the what do you call it, the congestion charge, so he wouldn't have to pay it. he was turned down because apparently the car manufacturer still manufactures fossil fuel cars.
It's all in or all out.
They sent him about an 8-page long letter to explain to him that whilst it was a good thing that he'd invested in an all-electric car, the manufacturer that built his car is not all fully electric yet, like Tesla, for instance. So he wasn't eligible. So what I'm trying to say is that whilst we're all trying to do good things, equally it's not cheap. It's not an easy and cheap transition. And you rightly mentioned earlier, you said it feels a bit wrong because we're trying to finance people that can afford more expensive houses because they're more energy efficient, and we're not helping out. And I see your point, and I think there is a lot that's being done as we speak. They're thinking about ways that, like grants that Simon mentioned just a minute ago, and helping hands for people that really want to get their properties to high ratings in terms of energy efficiency. I have to say, we do what we call financial health checks for our customers, and part of the questions that we ask them around the finances is whether they're aware of their energy efficiency of their home. And we send them out information if they don't know about it, so that if they want to do any changes, then they can, they know where to find help or how they can go about making their homes more energy efficient.
There are people who I can't see, so if you're waving your hand, I'm not calling your name out because I can't see you waving it. If you just want to unmute and shout out, you can do that.
I mean, just while people are doing that, Daniel, we're talking about air source heat pumps here and that sort of thing, but insulating our lofts has a payback period of 2 years. It takes a couple of days, and it's probably something most of us can do ourselves. Double glazing has got a payback time of 100 years. So we do need to target what it is we're wanting to do. So borrowing a heat scanner from Abingdon cover cutters in the winter to identify where your drafts are could really make a difference to people's comfort levels.
John? Muted.
John, unmute yourself, please.
Still muted. We can't hear you yet. Can you hear me? And we can't lip read.
I wonder if administrator can remove.
Muted.
I'm afraid I can't unmute anyone. They have to unmute themselves.
Hit your space bar.
I've done it. I've put in solar panels, and is it possible to get an upgraded energy performance certificate?
I think the energy performance certificates last 10 years. So after 10 years, you're going to have to get them out to revalue the property and to see whether the ratings changed. But it's not a bank job. I don't know what the agency is. I think it's the energy efficient agency, but I think they call it something like that. But the certificates are valid for 10 years. And if you've done any considerable amount of changes to your home, so let's say if my home was a B and I wanted to make it into an A, then they can come out and revalue it to assess it and make sure that is at where you want it to be.
But who does one talk to about this?
Yeah, the energy efficiency certificates, as I said, we can lead customers to find out information about them, and I can certainly share some information with Daniel so that customers can go and get their energy efficiency certificates reissued. or reassessed, their homes reassessed, so their energy efficiency certificates are reissued. I think it's a really good shout, especially if you're trying to sell a property, because from a buyer's perspective, I think people are now more aware of energy efficiency. And I mean, I buy goods, and the first thing I look at, besides being good at what they do, is how energy efficient they are, because we all know how expensive it is now to use electricity or gas or whatever. But I can certainly get you the agency name. Give me a second.
I'd much appreciate that. I'm one of your customers anyway.
Are you?
Yes.
Yeah, come in. Come on in. We'll offer you a review, and obviously
Okay.
as part of the review, my senior personal banker Simon can discuss the energy efficiency elements and can send you information about it.
Thank you. That's really welcome news.
No, that's absolutely fine. You're welcome.
Can I say that I've got the website up, and there is a page which says "Get help finding an energy assessor." This is on the NatWest Bank website, so it does say you might have to pay for a new assessment, John. But yeah, it's all there on the website.
Okay. You can't read what the sum of money is.
No, because obviously we don't regulate the process, but in line with what we're trying to do and what we're trying to get customers to become a bit more aware of the energy efficiency and how they can become greener, and looking at more towards sustainable homes or improve their homes to be more sustainable. In line with that, I think incorporating information regarding the energy efficiency of their homes helps out.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's okay.
Do you do business loans from the branch?
We don't. So branches primarily nowadays are looking after retail banking customers, whilst we also service business customers as part of the day-to-day operations. We don't have business managers based in our branches anymore. However, if you wanted to discuss in more detail with someone about a business proposition or the way we contact business or help business customers out, then certainly I can put you in touch with the right people.
Just at the very largest scale, you have Larry Fink at BlackRock saying that he's not going to lend my money, because in fact everybody's got money in BlackRock somewhere. They seem to have tentacles. If you don't have a transition plan. And I just think it's a really good idea, however big the business is. You don't want to lend money onto stranded assets. And there's always a danger now that you'll be regulated out of business as government catches up with the emergency we're in. So it's a very tricky business lending money to businesses when they're dependent on paying back over 5 or 10 years.
Well, I suppose when it comes to personal lending, it's different terms. When it comes to business lending, it's different terms. I think when we're lending money to big scale businesses, we try and have a say on their board meetings as well. And somebody gave an example of JD, the big chain. They were asking for investments. We went in, helped them out, but their board was primarily made of men. So we said, if you want us to help you, you have to change this. You have to become inclusive. You have to have ethnic minorities as part of your board. You have to have women as part of your board. And they listened, because otherwise we'd step out. So there's a lot that happens, but as I said, I'm a drop in the ocean in comparison to the information that's out there in terms of what we do for commercial and business customers, what we do with our corporate customers, what we do in terms of our investments, because the bank is not just current accounts and savings and fixed term savings and business loans and personal loans and mortgages. We're also heavily invested in markets.
And just to go back to that point on transition plans, at COP26, the UK government announced that it was setting up a transition plan task force. So the expectation is that by 2024, all major firms, and some do already, will have a publicly available, disclosed transition plan. So again, this is an area where I think the UK is leading the way.
They certainly are, and I think we're certainly going that. I think part of one of our biggest pledges for this year was certainly becoming greener and looking at cutting our carbon footprint even more as a group, and certainly looking at the investment side of things and seeing what we could do different.
I always react when anybody says that this country is doing well, Simon. Well,
it's leading the way. Clearly, there's a lot we can do, but if we look around the world, you know, I think we're the only country which has made a legal commitment to net zero by 2050.
Yeah. No, it was just the Securities and Exchange Commission in the States that documents that I think it's mostly larger transactions, but climate risk has to be covered as part of that transaction. I'm not sure in this country, NatWest seem to be very proactive in it, but I don't think it's regulated. I think it's regulated in theory. I think there's a lot of abuse of the system, but if you look at the Securities and Exchange Commission documents, they look fantastic. And you have to suspect that, in fact, people tick the boxes and then the deal goes through. And then all the discrepancies get picked up in 10 years' time when you find people didn't.
And then they get fined for it.
Well, you know, America is really it's a huge trough for barristers, and not the barristers, for lawyers and attorneys.
Yeah.
And you just see it when you read the documents. You can just see they make so much money out of the drafting and the abuse and the litigation and the delays. So you might be right, Simon. We might be leading, but in theory, America's doing their bit.
Yes, if I can.
Yes, I can't pronounce your name. You have to say who you are.
Prab Mistry, you can call me.
Prab Mistry.
The government policies and so on are one thing, but I have to say, given what's happened in the last 12 months in the country, where we've had to really, you know, the energy price has really gone up, and we've ended up paying a lot more. I don't think there has been much that the government has done to kind of get energy efficiency on the agenda. You know, it's kind of supported energy bills, but there could have been something in parallel with that, because there was a very good reason. You know, energy supply was restricted, and that was an ideal time to put the energy efficiency message out at the same time they were helping. And I think that was a missed opportunity. And I must say, knowing a little bit about the emissions of the country as well as the global, we are still rising with our emissions. So I don't think we can really say, while we may have policy, that we're going to get there with the targets for 2030 and 2050.
I think you're really, really right. And I have to say, if I look at COP26 and even COP27, the biggest polluters weren't there. So whilst we can do our bit for the planet, I think we all have to do our bit for the planet. I don't know, obviously you can tell from my accent, I'm not UK born, I'm actually Albanian. In COP26, Albania is all renewable energy. It's hydropower energy. So our Prime Minister came on stand last year and he said, well, whilst you talk about grants and talk about plants becoming greener, I'm there. I'm producing green energy. So I don't want you to give me loans. I'm a poor country. I want you to give me grants to make it better, to help my people to sustain the green energy. He said, and we're here talking about green energy, but none of the big polluters are here to talk about what they're doing about it. It was only when COVID came that we were able to see China from up above. So I don't know. We're trying to do so much, but England is a fraction of, or the UK as such is a fraction of the rest of the world. So I think there's a lot more that needs to be done.
Yes, I have a slightly different view on that. I think as a country, we may have exported all of the industries that create carbon dioxide emissions, but we still buy in all the things that China makes. That is actually carbon intensive. And that is not a way to live, frankly. We're actually blaming others for what we use, which is carbon intensive.
That's a good shout.
This goes back to the original question I had. There is nothing that we're feeling. You know, I live in Abingdon just like you do. I don't feel that there is any form of urgency around climate change or energy efficiency or anything like that. You know,
of course, our town council has declared a climate change emergency. So we need to talk to our councillors about that. And we were talking about plastics at the beginning. I think the council has an expectation that stallholders in the markets in the square will cease using plastic packaging. We don't actually think that's happened yet. I think that may be something that we want to talk to our councillors about over the next month. Why hasn't it happened? And you can perhaps understand that times have been very tough over the past 2 years for small businesses, but I think it should be more than a long-term aim to get those stallholders away from plastic packaging.
The thing is that time is not on our side either. Time's ticking, and what we need to do, it's quite fast, really. I know that the war's not helped and COVID's not helped. I mean, COVID helped our industry. We put our plans fast forward by five years. So whatever we're doing now, we put fast forward. When COVID hit, we went paperless. We digitalized a lot of our processes. We were the first bank on the high street that was offering paperless journey for mortgage applications. So customers don't need to print anything. Literally, all you do, save the documents on a PDF format, upload it on a platform, and the underwriter gets to see it the same day you speak to the mortgage advisor. Simple as. So, but equally, there is a lot more that we can do. And I suppose going back to your point, Mr. Mystery, is that we can talk more about it. We can enlighten one another as such for things that are available to make these changes happen. So, for instance, I'm not really aware as to what grants are available to help customers make their homes greener. I have to say, when I go into the government websites, I get a headache. It's too much. Whereas it has to be simplified, made simple. If you've got this home, if you earn this income, you're eligible to these grants to make your home greener, which will in effect help you with running lower costs in terms of heating and electricity.
I think you're absolutely right. The messaging on what has been called the Green Deal 1, 2, 3, 4, 4A, whatever number we reached, has been a national disaster. It should have been sorted 20 years ago, and it meant the customers weren't interested. Interest rates were wrong. They were targeting the wrong improvements. The grants for energy efficiency improvements in houses, it drives people to jump on snooker tables, basically. That's how far it gets. You know, there are people who've just completely lost patience with it. And I don't blame them. I'm not going to jump on a snooker table, but I know exactly why they do it. My sympathy is with them because they just draw attention to a national disaster. You know, Trav was right. What a great opportunity. Instead of giving people all this money to pay for the energy, give them the money to save the consumption of the energy in the first place. and they missed it again. Somebody else? Anybody else?
And I think that point speaks to conflicting priorities. Clearly, there is a cost of living challenge, and all of us, to one extent or other, have seen our living expenses rise. And you know, there has to be a short-term fix. I agree with you that philosophically, paying people to use energy doesn't encourage them to retrofit their homes, but neither do we want to see people living in fuel poverty. I mean, that's the tension, isn't it? But I would hope that somebody who's worked in the city for 40 years, that the sort of that the hand of the market will eventually encourage homeowners to think about, well, should I be setting my thermostat a bit lower? Should I be insulating my loft? Should I be sorting those drafts out around the skirting boards and the front door and the letterbox? You know, simple changes that can make a big difference in terms of people's comfort as well as the cost.
I have to say though, we did, especially when winter came, we did so much in terms of sharing best practices. We call it unbank-like tips for our customers. So customers that were struggling to feed their loved ones, where they could find their local food banks, how to get vouchers, what supermarkets were offering what at the time, how they can save electricity by doing little tricks around the homes. And that's something that we came together as a team. I'm part of a local market, and so it's not just NatWest in Abingdon. There's a few branches around that I'm part of, and we came around with the idea. And I think customers don't know, and sometimes people are shy to ask for help. So I suppose by opening up the conversation and engaging with people, do you know how to? Do you know how to? Can we help you with this? Like the energy efficiency, whilst I work in the finance industry myself, and I touch it pretty much every day, customers don't know. You go to buy electrical goods and people don't really look at, you know, how energy efficient they are, because they don't know, they don't understand it. So I think sharing knowledge is certainly important in what we're trying to achieve.
Just something you mentioned about economic crisis. I've just shared a link to Abingdon Community Fridge, which is where I'm a volunteer, and it's available to anyone to come to. There are 3 sessions in a week, and basically as volunteers we collect food from retailers and distribute that, provided it's still in date for use, to people who come on the day. So it's worth looking into, for, you know, as if you're giving people the pointers, this could be one of the pointers.
Yeah, no, but I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much. As I said, we don't just service the affluent ones, we service different clientele, different types of customers, and not everybody is well off. So we've seen customers struggle financially, so if we can point them in the right direction, then so be it.
We do give priority to people with low income. We ask them to come first, but it's actually open to anyone, because the aim is to actually reduce food wastage.
Yeah.
You know, help necessarily just people in need.
So would you then, how do you collect the food, mind me asking?
We have about 45 volunteers, so about 20 of them are engaged in collecting from, say, Tesco, Sainsbury's, M&S, and so on. And they're all trained in food handling. So we have 3 fridges, we have cupboards in the Hadland Community Centre, and we have 3 sessions when we serve: Monday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Yep.
I'm normally there at the end of the session on Saturday just to help them clear up. So it's worth looking into. If you're just interested, it's worth just coming along to see how it operates as well.
Yeah, I'd love to.
That's at Christchurch, is it?
No, it's at Hadland Community Centre.
Okay, that was the other one.
It's the leisure centre
Yeah.
area.
I don't know about everybody else, but I do think listening to Simon and Gejsa, it's a hackneyed term now, but it's really important, systemic. And the money does make the world go round. And if we don't understand its influence, then we don't understand the potential. Because I'm an information person. I go down to the Climate Emergency Centre and I hand out leaflets and I have discussions. And that's paperless. It is paperless, but apart from some of the leaflets, of course, which are printed by Seacourt, the most ethical printers. But it's not, doesn't have the influence and power of money. And I just don't think, I certainly, as an example, don't understand the power of that in the transition, for good and bad. You know, cutting off the funds where they shouldn't be going, as Gejsa was talking about, but funding the changes. Because if we don't understand it and we don't put the money behind it, I can go out and use propaganda as much as I like. It's just not going to have the effect. So, you know, I really think Simon owes us a talk about this. Being
happy to talk about some of the initiatives that are going on in the UK and in Europe and the US about how we're requiring our customers to become more transparent in how they're planning their transition, how they are using energy at the moment. You might know that there was a climate change stress test a year ago, which was a huge initiative, and some of Gejsa's colleagues from NatWest worked with us and the Bank of England to look at what the impact of rates of transition would be. You know, what we need to do to get to 1.5%, what we need to get to below 2%, and what if we didn't get to 2%? If there was no government intervention, if there was no technology improvement. It's a fascinating thought experiment in understanding from the regulator's point of view. I'm not a regulator, I'm on the other side of the table. From a regulator's point of view, how should the regulator think about the strength of Gejsa's bank, NatWest, looking forward 10, 15, 20 years in different climate change scenarios, looking at both physical impacts, so are all our homes going to flood, and also the transition effects. Do we move quickly enough?
I think.
What happens if we don't?
I think the intelligent investor, individually and the bank, moves in a green direction, because if you're not, you get stranded. So I see, I've been investing, my pension has been in green investments as long as I remember I had a pension. And I just thought, well, it's no point investing in anything else, because if there's going to be a future, it's going to have to be green. So I might as well invest in it.
And also, I think you're taking a responsible view about your money. You're setting an example there.
And I've only lost out in the last 12 months because of the profits made by Shell and BP.
Yeah.
I just have to turn a blind eye to that.
Yeah, but I'm sure in the long term you'll be better off.
I wish that Shell and BP invested those profits in the right place and didn't send it all out as dividends.
Not that either Gejsa or I are qualified to give investment advice.
I'm not regulated, so I can't, I'm afraid.
Somebody else, while we're together.
That was just me switching on my LED lights.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep the screen on, so it hit some lines in my face. It's gone that quite quick.
Caroline, yes, to us. Does anybody else want to spend a few more minutes while we have Gejsa with us? If not, I will hand the baton back over to Caroline, and she can talk about the future of carbon cutters next month and the month after that.
I was just going to mention a point. I do go into London now and again, and there are two charges: congestion charge and the low emission zone.
Yeah,
and it does pick it up by the car, the registration number. And so I was surprised when you said that it was to do with the car maker.
So the low carbon emission footprint, is by the number plate. You're right. However, the congestion charge, which is a daily set fee for London commuters, it's only available for free to Tesla owners. So
Really?
yeah. My husband doesn't have a Tesla. He's got a fully electric car, but that's not a Tesla. So when he applied to get the congestion charge free, he was told that because the manufacturer still produces fossil fuel cars, he's not eligible, even though his car is fully electric.
That means VW, that means Ford, they can't claim.
Yeah, his car is an Audi, so yeah, he wasn't. Only Tesla. But I was surprised because they managed to write about an 8-page long letter explaining why he wasn't eligible.
Other manufacturers have taken note. I don't think the Germans I think Germans are going to be last. They have an obsession with driving down autobahns at high speeds.
Well, I think they're talking about the autobahns being ditched soon enough.
Well, I'd like to see it. Anybody else? In which case, I will thank Gejsa very, very much. Oh, sorry, Richard.
I haven't got many facts at my fingertips here. My daughter takes Ethical Consumer magazine and said, you realise NatWest is one of the lowest ethical scores. Of course, that's on a whole lot of criteria, not just climate or environment. But I just wondered how these decisions to invest, how they're made, the big ones, the very large sums like to oil companies or wind farms. Are there a set of criteria by which a proposal is judged?
Yes.
How does that happen?
Obviously, with any lending that we do or any financing that we do, we have to look at a few factors, I suppose. You have to look at risk, you have to look at sustainability, you have to look at projections, what have you. So we don't just jump into it because we think it's going to be profitable. We look at any projects from every single angle. And as I mentioned about the JD project earlier on, the funding, they wanted funding from us, but obviously we weren't keen on the way they worked. So we said, if you want our money, you can change the way you function. So we need to see a more diverse boardroom rather than just men. And they had to make the changes to comply with our requirements. So whilst I'm not too sure what goes behind those closed doors, because there is specialized people that look into these projects, I know that there is a lot of work that goes before we say yes. I mean, in terms of underwriting a mortgage application, it can take 2 to 4 weeks, and projects in those scales that can take months or years even.
Right.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Gejsa.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
And Caroline will close the meeting.
Yeah. Thanks very much for coming, Gejsa. It's been very informative, and I certainly didn't realise that NatWest were doing so much in the name of sustainability. So it's really nice to hear that some of the banks are responding. Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to find out what's going on with Aberdeen Carbon Cutters, we've got a Facebook group that you can join, which has our events on, and also there's an Instagram group as well that you can join under Carbon Cutters. Are you aware of those?
I'm not, but I just picked up my phone as you were talking. I thought I'd look them up because I'm not very I don't use Facebook a great deal, but I certainly use Instagram.
Yeah, so
but I think
post the events on
Gejsa
there.
Gejsa was making a strong point there that you've got a captive workforce and that her colleagues in the branch have their own putting something back into the community objectives. And I'm sure Gejsa could organise some of her colleagues to lend a hand bending down and planting trees in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. As I said, the bank is more than happy for us to go out and assist the community where we need to. Obviously, if it's a weekend, even better, so that we can still keep the branch open and serve our customers. But yeah, I'd be more than happy. I've been actually looking out for little, not little projects, but little days out for the team to be able to give back to the community. Every Easter we do an Easter collection. I don't know if John's seen it, but this year we did it slightly differently. So we bought Easter eggs and we gave them out to kids. But in the past years, we've given them out to old people's homes, the Abingdon hospitals, John Fisher School. Last year we did Sobel House as well, but we collect quite a substantial amount of eggs. And I'm more than happy for you to bring ideas on how we can support the community, or we have an information board, a community board available. So if you want to put information out there for days when you get together, more than happy for you to advertise through that as well.
I should say that I think before your time as manager, I think I wrote to the bank, I wanted a carbon counter, a real-time carbon counter on the marketplace. And I thought that NatWest had the best window so that you can see it going up from what should be 300 up to 424 today. Today was a really bad day, by the way. The measurement at Morna Lau has got reached 424 parts per million.
Do you reckon it's because of Oxford?
It's we contribute 0.0001%, but the real-time calculator is a daily count they carry out in the middle of the Pacific. And I think it should be in the public domain. I think every town square should have a carbon counter as a reminder to people how fast we're going in the wrong direction. Crab, as you said, whatever happens, you have as many COPs as you like, the graph still goes up. The Keeling curve still curves upwards.
Well, I suppose it's not so much about looking at the machine as it's about educating everybody what that machine does.
It's a bit of each. I'll write again. I'll write again. See if NatWest will use their windows to advertise.
How big are they?
Well, they don't exist. The only one that exists in the public domain is the Guardian. Every day, the Guardian publishes a carbon count, and it should be in every public square and every railway station and every airport terminal. And NatWest do have some very prominent windows that could be used for that purpose.
I can ask.
I could ask.
I mean, I manage the building, but I don't think I manage what goes on the windows. But I can ask. In line with what we're trying to do, I think it'll be a good thing.
I think it would be amazing if Abingdon had the first carbon counter in a public place.
Well, I'm happy to assist if I can.
Excellent. I should say it's Good to Grow weekend. If anybody wants to go down to Stonehill Farm Garden, community garden, we're open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And we had a corporate day actually, Gejsa, there today. I don't know who came. I think it was Amy came.
Okay, the road builders.
They bring the tree fellows in Sheffield, where they can do build roads as well. Yeah, we do have a few corporate days down at Stonehill where they do some heavy lifting for us.
Can we also mention that this weekend it's the big one in London with lots of protests going on about the climate, including Saturday, which is Earth Day, when there are big marches for biodiversity in London.
Yep. Caroline, I'm going to mute myself now. I've done my bit. I'm going to say thank you again, Gejsa.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for coming and contributing.